So welcome to take 2 of a live stream, right? Awesome. So obviously I've been away for a little bit. Life happens, right? So I wanted to jump back in today with a little bit simpler of a topic. Well, I guess it's not a simple topic, but I figured we're not going for a long one. This isn't going to be, I'm hopefully getting you out of here in 10, 15 minutes. That's my goal today. But PowerPoint, and more importantly, the mentality that PowerPoints play, I think can sometimes hurt us in our content development. Or maybe, do they hurt us is probably the better question. It's really for you to decide. But so, what do I mean by the PowerPoint mentality? So for me, and if you Google this, you're probably not going to find anything. I didn't do it. I probably should have beforehand. But to me, the idea of the PowerPoint mentality is like, all right, hey, Pat, we've got to build training. We need a training on something, and how are we going to, we're building this training, and where are you starting? And I'm going to be like, I start in PowerPoint, right? I build PowerPoints, I put slides and notes, and we go. And I know it's crazy for me, for me with my small family business, that we help people build training materials, and one of the first questions I ask when they're building guidebooks is like, hey, do you have slides and do you have notes? Right? That literally is the first question out of my mouth. But the reason I ask that is after working with hundreds, if not thousands of content developers over the years, I've come to realize about 70% of people, that is what they have. So I start in that question. But after thinking about this, I'm gonna back that up, because I think by asking that question, I kind of perpetuate the process of always making PowerPoints the mainstay. So the idea here is, does building from PowerPoints first help us, or does it hurt us? And I think the simple answer to this is yes. It does both. So how does it help us? In the simplest manner, it's a process. It's a strategic process. Like, I've got to build training. I start with PowerPoints. I build PowerPoints. I put my notes in, right? Or maybe it's I write my notes in the PowerPoint and then I build out the visual cues in my slides. One of those. But by doing that, you become more effective. And please don't read the word effective there as it's an effective training. It becomes you're more effective at building the training program, right? So 2 different concepts of effective, right? We can get better, get quicker, do more in less time, effective content development by having a strategic process, versus what I've built out is an effective training that gets us to our course objectives. So in that way of having a strategic process, it's helpful. But I think it hurts us because it really puts us down this lane of my PowerPoints are the important thing of training, right? I've worked with so many different content developers, and I've heard over and over again, my facilitators like to have, a single page with the image of my slide, and here's what they say. And now turn the page, and here's the next slide they're going to show, and here's what they're going to talk about. So in that realm, you're going down the line of the slides are the important feature. Slides get shown, say this, move to the next thing. And you're railroading your learners down this path of PowerPoint. It gets close, death by PowerPoint comes up, right? This is how we end up with government, and for anyone from the government who's watching this, and this is one of my biggest pet peeves. Like, hey, if it's not on a slide, it's not in our training. So like, we've got a slide for, here's my terminal performance objective or my enabling performance objective. And it's like one slide, and you end up with this 500 slide deck. Like, we've got to stop doing those type of things to make better training programs. So, yes, it helps us, but it also hurts us. So what other options are out there for us? What could we do? And again, this was my getting my feet wet again back into doing weekly live streams. So again, I'm keeping it short. I'm going to give you 3 options at the moment. They're not the be-all, end-all. They're just some things to think about. I just wanted to kind of get my brain going and your brain going today before you go off and have your corned beef and cabbage because it's St. Patty's Day, right? At least if you're in New England, that's what you have. I like the corned beef side. The cabbage, not so much. But, all right. So first option, if we're talking process, what's our process? You know, I get it. I have to build training or something comes up and we got to do it. Where do I start? Start at a design document, right? We're at the design document. Hopefully we've already gone in, we've done our needs analysis, right? We've got an issue that needs to be fixed. So we kind of capture that in the design document. And then from there, like, here's what needs to be fixed and here's what we're proposing, right? So here's the course goal. And then under that course goal, like, to get to this goal, here are the objectives that we need to do, right? And at no point before this stage am I saying, like, this needs to be instructor-led training or this needs to be virtual instructor-led training or an e-learning or a job aid. I kind of lay out, like, what we're trying to solve, how we're going to go about solving it, and then how we're going to go about solving it kind of determines what's the best manner for building our training, right? And so if we're going instructor-led training, all right, now we can start laying those out and then put our PowerPoints in to support us as sensory items, right? As sensory recall, as visual reminders to support the topics that we're talking about versus like slide 1, show this, talk about this, right? So the design document, this is the way we need to be going to help us in our strategic process. Plus, it also gives you a nice executive summary that you're able to hand off to the stakeholders, to the organization to show, like, here's what we're seeing, here's what we need to do. Obviously, this is a much bigger topic that needs more than, you know, a March 17th, a St. Patrick's Day quick live stream about it. But design document, there's a great option. The other one, more virtual, use the spotlight feature, right? So if you're in Zoom, you're in Teams, use the spotlight feature. We don't always have to be showing a PowerPoint slide. How many different virtual trainings have you sat through that maybe the person was great, like they narrowed it down. We didn't have 45 slides in a 20-minute session, but we've now had one single slide that sat up there for 17 minutes as this person talked, and that slide's got nothing to do with what you're talking about, right? At that stage, I'm holding up my phone, like, you know, I'm looking at my phone, I'm off on my other monitor. So use the spotlight feature, bring yourself out of the gallery so now they can see the person who's speaking, right? Or as you're bringing on, having other people talk, you know, as you're bringing, you know, people are interacting, spotlight them, right? Hey, Karina, how do you go about, you know, what would you do in this situation? And then spotlight them for the answer. Probably should want to talk with them first just to let people know that this is going to happen. But I think it makes a much better, a much more engaged program, right? And it's, maybe you've heard me talk about the stagnant screen, right? The stagnant screen where it's why kind of I do what I do with, and which is going to get to our next topic. But like, we don't want things just sitting, you know, a single image, just us for a long period of time. We want movement on the screen, like, right? Just popping out those words and moving them back in. It captures the eye, right? It's like that whole, like I think of my ADHD son, like, ooh, squirrel, ooh, shiny thing, right? It just keeps people engaged. Or it has a better chance of keeping people engaged because there's movement, right? Put stuff in the background. I'm not saying you need to have a fish tank, but have things where there's movement. Talk with your hands. Maybe not as much as I do, but talk with your hand. All of this stuff helps bring people in. Lastly, you know, of the other items on the list, look at some other options that are out there for software. And again, this is more virtual based, but obviously even at the OBS Studio, this is some stuff that we can do in person as well. But what other tools are out there to allow us to do these things? So OBS Studio is actually the tool that I use for making stuff, you know, for jumping around on the screen and having words and all that stuff appear. And so this allows me to go through and I'm able to kind of lay out my whole program Like I just did an ATD session yesterday, which was I just fed in my webcam into the program, and then based off the buttons that I was pushing using my Stream Deck, if I hold this up, based off of how I programmed it, I can make things appear on the screen, I can move things around. So it's like building slides, but it's now something I'm able to push in there. And so I can create better interactive, possibly engaging items. Right? Engagement is at the end of the day up to the actual learner. We can just help them down the path. We can bring them to the water. They need to actually drink. But for that, so those are 3 items to look at in how do we kind of move away from just strictly having our PowerPoints. So I'd love to hear what you guys think. I'm actually going to flush this out some more into a blog article that I'll put out next week. But with that, and I would appreciate you guys joining back in, and better yet, letting me know that I forgot to get my sound turned on to start with. So when this goes up on YouTube, I will cut off that, and it'll just start like if we had no idea, nothing went wrong. But with that, have a wonderful St. Patrick's Day. Enjoy your corned beef and cabbage and all the green beer that you can drink. And I will see you guys next week. Next week, we're talking about templates in building out guidebooks. So what type of templates, all those type of things. So it's gonna be your primer on templates. Super excited, at least it's super exciting for me. But I will see you guys all then. And any questions that ever, just reach out, all right? Take care, folks.